The world of Archon 4 burned under two suns. Black smoke filled the sky, and the ground was covered with ash and twisted metal. Explosions echoed across the valley where soldiers had fought for weeks. Once a green world, now it was nothing but a graveyard of machines and broken dreams. Among the ruins walked Sergeant David Kane, a human Marine from Earth. His armor cracked, his rifle half broken, dust covering his face, his breathing heavy. He was the only one from his squad who had survived the last ambush. The radio on his chest whispered static, but no voice answered. He moved through the wreckage carefully, his boots crunching on glass and burned armor. The silence was strange, too heavy, too final. The war had ended on this front, but not in victory. Both sides had lost everything. Then through the smoke, a faint sound reached his ears. A low beeping. Weak but steady, David paused, gripping his weapon, his instincts sharp. A distress beacon? He muttered, his voice rough from the dust. He followed the signal, stepping over the bodies of soldiers, both human and alien. Their blood mixed into the same mud. The sound grew louder until he reached a collapsed piece of an alien dropship, torn open like a tin can. Inside, half buried under metal, was a body not human. Tall, silver-skinned, armor-scorched. Her lower body trapped under debris, her breathing shallow, her eyes closed. But the beacon pulsed from her chest plate. David hesitated. His orders were clear. No rescues for enemy soldiers. No exceptions. The Zereth Empire had shown no mercy to humans. And yet, as he looked at her, something inside him stopped him from turning away. He dropped his rifle and crouched beside her, brushing away the dust. "Still alive," he whispered. Checking her pulse, it was faint but there. Her chest rose and fell slowly. Her face was calm, almost peaceful despite the chaos around her. The alien woman groaned softly, her eyes flickering open. They were deep violet, glowing faintly in the dim light. When she saw him, her pupils tightened in alarm. She tried to reach for a weapon that wasn't there, but she was too weak to move. "Easy," David said quietly, raising his hands. "I'm not here to kill you." She stared at him, her lips trembling as she spoke, her voice sharp but faint. "Human. Mercy. Strange." David gave a small smirk. "Yeah, we're strange like that." He looked around, trying to move the debris off her, but the metal was fused, too heavy. She winced as he pulled at it, pain flashing through her face. "Hold on," he said, pulling a small plasma cutter from his belt. "I can get you out." "You shouldn't," she whispered weakly. "Your kind. Kill mine." On sight, he kept working. "Maybe I'm tired of that," he said softly, sparks flying as he cut through the twisted steel. The smell of burning metal filled the air. After several long minutes, the last piece came loose. David threw it aside and lifted her carefully. She gasped in pain, her legs unmoving, damaged beyond repair. "I can't walk," she whispered, shame in her voice. "Leave me." David looked at her for a long moment, then said, "Not happening." He pulled her up, carrying her over his shoulders. She was heavier than she looked, but he didn't stop. The alien blinked in disbelief. "Why, help me?" she asked. "Because you're still breathing," he said simply. "That's reason enough." They moved slowly through the ruins, the wind howling across the battlefield, each step a struggle. His armor alarms flashing low energy. Low oxygen still, he pressed forward, high above, hidden among the clouds. A Zereth recon drone zoomed in, its red lens focusing on them. It recorded the sight of a human carrying an alien warrior through the ashes, and sent the footage back to the Zerath command ship. When Warlord Varthun, commander of the Zerath fleet, saw the feed, his expression turned to stone. "She lives?" he asked coldly. "Yes, my lord," the officer replied. "But she's with a human. Then she dies," Varthun said. "No daughter of Valora shall be seen crawling beside the enemy." He gave the order. "Activate the hunter drones, eliminate both." Back on the surface, David had reached a broken ridge overlooking a burnt-out human outpost, smoke rising in the distance. He gently set the alien down. She was barely conscious, her breathing shallow. He gave her his canteen. "Here, drink," he said. She hesitated, staring at it like it was poison, then took a sip, the water spilling down her chin. "You risk your life for me," she whispered. "You will be called traitor." "Maybe," he said, sitting beside her. "But at least I'll still be human." She looked at him, confusion mixing with something else, respect. "You are different," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "Name's David," she blinked, then whispered. "Turin." A sudden sound made them both turn, the high-pitched whine of engines. David grabbed his rifle, scanning the sky. Dark shapes appeared above the clouds, red lights blinking, hunter drones approaching fast. "Damn it," he muttered. "They found us." Turin's eyes widened. "They're mine," she said bitterly. "But they will kill us both." David lifted her again. "Then let's make them work for it." The drone screamed closer, beams of light sweeping across the ruins. David ran through the smoke, his heart pounding. Each step heavier than the last. Explosions lighting the sky behind him. He didn't know if he could outrun death, but he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't leaving her behind. And somewhere in the cold sky, among the smoke and fire, humanity's heart burned brighter than any weapon. Night fell across the shattered plains of Archon 4. Fire burned in the distance like dying stars. Smoke rose from the ruins of broken ships, and the wind carried the cries of machines still trying to live. Sergeant David Kane stumbled through the darkness, his armor cracked and bleeding sparks. His left arm numb from the weight on his shoulder. The alien woman he carried, Commander Turin of House Valora, was fading fast, her silver blood leaving a faint trail in the sand. He found an abandoned bunker half buried under the rubble, its door twisted but still intact, using all his strength. He forced it open and dragged her inside. The bunker smelled of rust and death, but it was shelter. He set her down gently. Leaning her against the wall, she tried to speak, but her voice broke. "You should have left me." David sat beside her, breathing hard. "I tried that once," he said quietly. "Didn't feel right." Turin looked at him with half-lidded eyes, her body trembling. "Humans. Pity too much, maybe," he said, pulling a small light from his belt and setting it on the floor. Its glow filled the bunker with soft warmth. "Or maybe we just don't like watching someone die when we can stop it." She looked away, her pride and confusion fighting inside her mind. "We were taught mercy is weakness," David smirked faintly. "Then I guess I'm the weakest man alive." He removed the armor from her legs, revealing deep wounds, shattered bone, and twisted metal implants. She flinched but didn't scream. "Can you feel anything?" he asked. "No," she whispered. "They are gone." He looked at her and saw something he hadn't expected. Not a monster, not an enemy, but a soldier. Broken and left behind, just like him. David opened his med kit, pulling out tubes of biofoam and sealing gel. He worked carefully, cleaning the wounds. Her blood shimmered under the light, glowing like liquid silver. When he pressed the foam to her wounds, she hissed, her sharp teeth flashing. "Your medicine burns." "Good," he said softly. "Means it's working," she frowned, watching him silently, his face streaked with dirt and pain. Yet he moved with care, his hand steady even as his body trembled with exhaustion. "Why help me?" she asked again. "Your kind hates mine." David shrugged slightly. "Hate's easy, helping's harder." "I guess I wanted to do the hard thing." For a long moment they sat in silence, only the wind outside and the soft hum of machines around them. After some time she spoke again, her voice low and uncertain. "My people. They left me, they said I failed the Empire." David looked up. Meeting her eyes, "You didn't fail," he said simply. "You just fought too well for the wrong side." She tilted her head, studying him. "You speak like a soldier who has lost much," he smiled sadly. "I have," he said. "Too many good ones left behind." She nodded slowly. Understanding that kind of loss, hours passed. David patched his own arm with a bandage, then checked her vitals again. Her breathing had stabilized. Her heart beat stronger. "You'll live," he said. "The walking might be another story." Turin closed her eyes, whispering, "Then carry me." He laughed under his breath. "You don't ask for small favors, do you?" "Commanders never do," she replied faintly. A ghost of a smile on her lips. Outside, the storm had settled. The twin moons of Archon glowed above the horizon, casting silver light through the cracks in the bunker roof. David leaned against the wall, his eyes heavy. "We'll move at dawn," he said. "If I can get the comm system working, I can call for extraction." She frowned. "Your army will kill me." He nodded slowly. "Probably." "Then why risk it?" she asked again, voice sharper this time. David looked at her, his expression tired but steady. "Because I don't see a monster sitting next to me. I see someone who deserves a chance." Her breath caught for a second, and she turned away, hiding her face in the dim light. "Humans, strange creatures," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "That's what everyone keeps saying." As the night deepened, Turin began to drift into uneasy sleep. Her mind flickering with memories, she saw her father, her soldiers, the betrayal when they left her bleeding on the ground. A warrior who cannot walk has no place among us, he had said. She opened her eyes, staring at the human sleeping near the door, his rifle across his chest guarding even in exhaustion. Something inside her shifted, something she didn't have a word for. When dawn broke, David woke to the sound of wind moving softly through the valley. He checked his scanner, a red blip blinked on the screen. Approaching fast, he looked at her. "They're coming," he said quietly. Trin nodded, her eyes glowing faintly again. "Mine or yours?" "Does it matter?" he asked, lifting his rifle. For the first time she smiled, a small, broken but real smile. "No," she said. "Not anymore." The sound of engines grew louder, shadows moving across the sand. David crouched by the doorway, pulse steady. He glanced back at her. "If we don't make it out..." It was an honor. She gripped his wrist weakly, her voice steady despite the fear. "Then let us die as soldiers, not enemies." The door burst open. Light flooded in and the next battle began. The morning sun rose over the ruins of Archon IV, its red light spilling across broken towers and cracked soil. The wind carried the smell of metal and ash. Far away engines echoed. The sound of hunters closing in. Inside the bunker, Sergeant David Kane checked his rifle again, counting the last of his energy cells. Only 2 left, his armor's shield was half dead, his pulse steady but his eyes tired. He turned to look at Commander Turin, still weak but awake. The light from the ceiling glimmered off her silver skin. "They're close," he said quietly. "Too close," Trin nodded, forcing herself upright. "I can fight," she said, though her body trembled with the effort. He shook his head. "You can barely stand," she gave a faint smile. "Then I will fight sitting." David couldn't help but smirk. "You really don't know when to quit." "Warriors of Valora never quit," she said proudly. Then softer. "Even when we are dying," the scanner beeped again. Red dots multiplying fast, not 1 group, 2. He frowned. "Human signatures?" "And Zareth." Turin's eyes widened. "Both armies?" "Looks like it," he muttered. "They want to make sure we don't walk out of here." She looked at him, realizing what it meant. "Your people think you betrayed them. Mine think I betrayed them. We are hunted by both." David laughed bitterly. "That's a hell of a team-up." They could already hear the drones above, humming like angry insects, shadows moving across the sand. David grabbed his helmet and turned to her. "We can't stay here." He moved to lift her, but she stopped him, gripping his wrist with surprising strength. "You cannot carry me forever, human," she said. "You must survive." He looked into her eyes. "Not without you." Her expression softened for the briefest moment, but she didn't argue. Instead, she reached down and tore a glowing power core from her broken armor, handing it to him. "Take this, it will boost your weapon." 1 shot, maybe 2, he took it. Sliding it into his rifle, the weapon hummed with new life. Outside, the drones closed in, scanning the bunker's entrance, their red lights piercing the smoke. David aimed through the crack in the wall. Firing a single burst, the blast hit the lead drone, blowing it apart in a flash of blue flame. The rest responded instantly, firing plasma beams that tore through the sand and stone. David ducked, shielding Turin as rubble rained down. "Back tunnel," she said, pointing weakly toward a half-buried door. He nodded, helping her move, dragging her through as the ceiling began to collapse. They stumbled into a long underground corridor lined with ancient machinery. Dust covered everything. The lights flickered weakly. "Where does this lead?" he asked. "To the old transport depot," she said. "If it still stands, we can find a shuttle." They moved as fast as they could, David half carrying her again, each step echoing through the tunnels. Behind them, the drones broke through the bunker, their mechanical shrieks filling the air. A blast shook the tunnel, throwing David to the ground, his ears ringing. Trin crawled beside him, her hand glowing faintly as she touched his armor. "Healing the burns along his arm? You didn't have to," he began. She interrupted him softly. "You carried me. Now I carry you." He met her gaze and nodded silently. They reached the end of the corridor, a massive underground hangar, half destroyed but still holding a few old shuttles covered in dust. David rushed to one, checking its systems. "It might still fly," he said. "If we can get power." Before he could move, a voice echoed from behind them. "Don't bother." David spun around, rifle raised. 3 armored human soldiers stood there, their helmets shining under the dim light. Their leader smirked. "You're a long way from your unit." "Sergeant, Captain Roan," David said bitterly, recognizing the voice. I thought you died on the ridge, Roan chuckled. I lived. Long enough to see you carrying one of those alien freaks, he spat. You've disgraced the Corps. Trin glared at him. You speak of disgrace while hunting your own. Roan pointed his gun at her. Shut it, alien. David stepped between them. She's not your enemy. Roan's tone turned cold. She was our enemy the moment she was born, and you. You're worse than her now, without warning. Roan fired. The plasma bolt struck David in the chest. His shield flared and died. He fell to one knee, gasping. Trin screamed, fury flooding through her veins. The runes on her skin flared to life. Her broken legs glowing with energy, she raised her hand, releasing a burst of light that threw Roan and his men across the hangar. The floor shaking with the impact, David coughed, looking up in disbelief. You can still fight, she nodded, panting. Only because you believed I could. Roan struggled to stand. You're dead, both of you, he shouted. But before he could fire again, a loud metallic roar filled the air. The Zerath hunter drones had arrived, bursting through the tunnel behind them. Red lights flooding the hangar. Perfect timing, David muttered. Aiming his rifle, Trin stood beside him, her hands glowing. Then let us die as soldiers, she said. Not today, he replied. The hangar filled with chaos, plasma fire, explosions, metal and flesh fighting side by side. David fired until his rifle burned. Trin unleashed blast after blast of light, her power blazing brighter with each strike. Finally, when the last drone fell, silence returned, smoke rising from the ruins, both of them barely standing. David lowered his rifle, panting. You still think mercy is weakness? He asked. Trin smiled faintly. No, she said softly. Now I think mercy is strength humans learned before we ever did. Above them, the hangar roof cracked open, light pouring in from the twin suns. David looked up and whispered, Let's get out of here. But in the shadows above, a dark ship hovered silently, watching, recording. The Zerath warlord had seen everything, and his fury burned like a new sun. The sun burned red over the wastelands of Archon IV. The horizon shimmered with heat and smoke, and the world smelled of dust and death. Sergeant David Kane limped through the sand, his armor scorched and his strength fading. Beside him, Commander Trin moved slowly, supported by his arm, her new metallic braces glowing faintly where her legs had once been shattered. They had escaped the hangar alive, but barely. The wreckage still burned behind them and far in the sky. Dark shapes circled, hunter drones searching for survivors. Every few steps, David had to stop and breathe. His chest armor cracked from Roan's shot, his ribs bruised, the air inside his helmet growing hot and thin. Yet he never let go of her. You can leave me, Trin said quietly, her voice hoarse. You'll move faster alone. He gave a weak smile. I already tried that once, he said. Didn't like it. She looked at him, her violet eyes softening. Humans are strange, she whispered. You risk everything for someone who once tried to kill you. David chuckled under his breath. Guess we're slow learners. They reached a ridge overlooking a valley filled with shipwrecks, jagged metal rising like the bones of giants. Trin scanned the horizon. There, she pointed. The signal beacon of a supply outpost. It might still have power. David nodded. Then that's where we're going. They began their descent, the sand shifting under their feet, each step echoing in the endless silence. Suddenly a shadow crossed the sun. The deep hum of engines filled the air. David pulled Trin down behind a piece of wreckage, peering up to see a Zerath patrol skimmer, its searchlights scanning the ground. Trin clenched her fists, anger flashing across her face. He sends his own to finish what betrayal began, David frowned. Your father? She hesitated, then nodded slowly. Warlord Varthun, he commands the Zerath fleets, and I was his daughter. David blinked in shock. You're a princess? Not anymore, she said bitterly. He erased my name the moment I spared human lives. David stared at her, realizing the truth. So that's why he left you to die. Yes, she said softly. He said mercy is the disease of the weak. David looked toward the passing ship and said, Then maybe we're the cure. The skimmer moved on. Disappearing into the smoke, they continued their march, step by step through the burning valley. By evening, they reached the outpost, its walls broken but its signal tower still standing. David climbed inside, searching the consoles. I can power it with my armor core, he said, pulling out the glowing chip. Trin sat near the door, watching him work. If your people answer, she asked quietly, will they take me prisoner? Maybe, he said honestly. But I'll be there. Her gaze dropped. You would defy your command for me? He turned to her. I already did. The silence between them grew warm, heavy with unspoken things neither could say. The light from the terminal flickered across their faces. Finally, the beacon flared to life, sending a pulse through the air. David leaned back, exhausted. Signal's out, he said. Now we wait. Outside? The desert winds howled like ghosts. Hours passed. Then a voice crackled through the radio. Human command. Signal received, coordinates locked, extraction team en route. David smiled faintly. We made it, but before he could say more, Turin stiffened, her eyes glowing. No, she whispered. They found us first. From the dark sky descended 3 Zareth attack ships, their cannons glowing red. David grabbed his rifle, shouting, "Get down!" The first blast hit the tower, sending metal flying. He shielded Turin with his body as debris rained down. The console shattered, flames erupting. Turin pushed him away, her hands glowing with pure energy. No more running, she said. If he wants me, he will come himself. David grabbed her shoulder. You can't fight them all. She looked at him with calm determination. I don't have to, she said. Just long enough for you to live. He shook his head. No, we do this together. For a moment, neither spoke. Only the sound of fire and the distant roar of ships filled the air. Then she whispered, You gave me mercy, human. Now let me return it. She turned toward the open door. Raising her hands, a column of light shot into the sky, striking the lead ship, its engines exploding in flame. The others pulled back, circling. Preparing another strike, David fired into the sky, shouting over the noise, Come on! Come and get us! Turin staggered, blood running down her arms. Her glow flickering, she fell to her knees. It's not enough, she whispered. David knelt beside her, placing her hand over his chest. Then use me. Her eyes widened. You'll die? He smiled faintly. Maybe. But I'd rather die saving you than live watching you fall. Their hands touched. The energy surged between them, their lights merging, human tech and alien power combining in a burst of white fire. The desert lit up like a second sun. The attacking ships were thrown from the sky, crashing into the dunes, the blast wave rolling for miles. When the light faded, the outpost stood silent again. Dust drifting through the air, David gasped. Still alive but barely conscious, Turin lay beside him. Glowing faintly, her breathing weak, she whispered, You are impossible, he laughed softly. You should see us on a good day. She smiled faintly, her hand gripping his. You carried me once. Now we carry each other. He nodded weakly, looking toward the sky where human ships now approached, their lights cutting through the smoke. Looks like home found us. Her eyes closed, peace settling on her face. Then maybe. Mercy won, she whispered as the extraction team descended. David whispered one last thing. No, Turin. Humanity did. And above the dying world, 2 lives. 1 human, 1 alien had already changed the fate of an empire. The world of Archon 4 lay quiet beneath the fading light. Ashes drifted across the dunes like falling snow. Wreckage smoked on the horizon. The long war that had scarred 2 civilizations was finally dying. Human rescue ships landed on the sand. Soldiers moved cautiously through the ruins, scanning for life. Among the wreckage, they found Sergeant David Kane lying beside an alien woman with silver skin and broken armor. Both still breathing, both clinging to life. When David opened his eyes, blinding light greeted him. He was inside a med bay, the steady hum of engines around him. He tried to sit up, but pain shot through his chest. You're safe, a voice said softly. He turned, seeing Turin standing at the doorway, her new cybernetic legs glowing faintly, the same soft violet eyes watching him with warmth. You made it, he whispered. So did you, she replied, moving closer. Though you nearly didn't, he smiled weakly. Guess I'm stubborn, she nodded. Yes, she said quietly, and because of that, the galaxy changed. He frowned, confused, and she handed him a datapad. It showed footage from across the Zareth systems, soldiers laying down weapons, fleet standing still, broadcasts of peace spreading from world to world. When our ship saw what you did, she said, how you carried me, how you refused to kill, they questioned everything. My father's empire began to crumble. David blinked. Varthun? Turin's face darkened. He came to Archon 4 himself, she said. But when he saw us alive, something inside him broke. The scene shifted in her memory. The warlord standing before the ashes, staring at his daughter walking again, her hand in a human's, the air filled with silence instead of gunfire. He had no words, only shame. He called me weak, she said. But in his eyes I saw fear. Fear of the thing he could never control. Compassion. David took her hand gently. Then mercy won after all. She smiled faintly. No, humanity won. Days turned into weeks. Humans and Zirath began talking for the first time. Ships once built for war now carried supplies and medicine. Translators replaced weapons. David walked again with the help of a brace. His armor retired, his medals meaningless. Yet he had never felt prouder. One evening, he found Turin on the ship's observation deck, staring out at the stars, her reflection shining in the glass. Can't sleep either, he asked. She shook her head slowly. These stars, she said. I fought under them my entire life, and for the first time, they don't look like enemies. He leaned beside her. Maybe they never were. She glanced at him, smiling softly. My father once told me that humans were a mistake of nature. David raised a brow. Let me guess, you disagree now, she nodded. Yes, she said quietly. Humans are not a mistake. You are a reminder that the heart can be stronger than any weapon. For a while they stood in silence, the stars drifting endlessly beyond the glass. Finally she spoke again, her voice fragile but hopeful. What will you do when we reach Earth? He shrugged. Maybe teach, maybe rest, maybe build something instead of breaking it. She turned toward him. Then I'll come with you. He smiled gently. You'd live among humans? I already have, she said. One carried me through hell. That's enough proof of your world, the comm signal chimed, the captain's voice echoing through the deck. Approaching Earth orbit. Prepare for descent. David looked out the window. Blue oceans and green continents shining below. He whispered. Turin stared in awe. It's beautiful, he looked at her. It's yours too now. The ship entered the atmosphere, streaks of light burning outside. The hum of engines steady. When they landed, crowds waited. Humans, Zarath, and dozens of species who had once been enemies, all standing together as David and Turin stepped out. The wind carried a single cheer that grew into a wave of sound. Cameras flashed, diplomats spoke, but David only saw her smile. The same quiet strength he had seen on that battlefield when she refused to give up. Later that night, under Earth's stars, they stood alone, the air cool and gentle. She looked up and said, You kept your promise. He tilted his head. Which one? The one where you said you'd carry me home, she said softly. And you did, he smiled. We carried each other. She reached out, touching his hand. Then let us keep carrying what we found. Peace. And as the wind moved through the trees and the stars watched from above, humanity's smallest act of mercy had become the universe's greatest promise. The story of the man who refused to abandon his enemy spread across galaxies, reminding all who heard it that even in the darkest war, one act of compassion can rewrite the stars. And in every corner of space, they whispered his name and hers, David Kane and Turin Valora, the soldier and the alien princess, the ones who carried hope home.